All right, I think that we are streaming here. Let's see. Yeah, we are. Okay, so today's stream, I'm going to be tearing apart an Omega wheel. I've shown some of this in previous videos, but never all in one place, and I don't think I've shown the LED replacement process at all yet, so that's going to be new in this video. And we've got some improved tools. We've never really shown what's in the toolkit that you get with the wheel, so I'll walk through those as well as we do the teardown. So let me switch over to the other table here, and I think yeah, there we go. Got things laid out funny here. Let me just move some stuff around here. There we go. And should probably be recording this as well. All right, so here we go. This is one section of the Omega wheel. And before I tear anything apart, let's talk through what the various components in this assembly are called, just for regular nomenclature. There's also kind of a standardized position that I like to refer to things as in the wheel, and that standardized position is as if you were standing inside of the wheel with the wheel kind of with the bolt holes, the coupler bolt holes facing up, as you're looking at the wheel, each section is kind of going in order. This is section 1, section 2 would be over here, and so forth around the wheel in a clockwise direction. So this is kind of the standard position that I'll refer to things in. If I say top, I'm referring to this top side of the wheel in this position. If I say bottom, I'm referring to the bottom side of the wheel in this position, and so on. So basically what we have here is we have a full section of an Omega wheel, complete with the coupler. Oftentimes people will call these inserts. There's other parts in this wheel that could be considered an insert, so in order to disambiguate, I try to call these couplers as much as possible. We've got a MagFlex connector on the end of the coupler here. More specifically, this is the MF3L connector as opposed to the MF3R connector. So like MagFlex 3-position, left and right. So when it's in this position, we can refer to this as the left connector of the assembly, and the other connector that's inside here is the right connector. So MF3L, MF3R. All right. Then we've got the frame of the wheel with LED strips inside of it, and it'll have a power pack inside of it. Let's take a closer look at a power pack before we actually open this wheel up. The power pack sits inside of the wheel basically just like this. This power pack assembly is actually a power pack assembled to a coupler. So one of the things that we're going to do in this video is we're going to show how to remove the coupler from the power pack. In case you want to switch a power pack out, if you want to replace one, if we send you a new version of power pack, things like that, you might want to remove it from the coupler. The coupler is part of the wheel frame, so it's not something that you would want to swap out and throw away if you are, for whatever reason, getting rid of one of these power packs. In our power pack here, so we've got the coupler, we've got, again, the MF3R connector, the MF3L connector. They will hook the contiguous sections of the wheel together. I guess this is the power pack proper right here with the coupler cable and the pigtail cable. This pigtail cable is the adjustable part of this assembly. Actually, there's a little bit of adjustability on the coupler cable as well. We put about a quarter to a half inch of adjustability on this end as well, because with stacking tolerances, slightly different lengths of parts, you might want your power pack to be situated, you know, a little bit further this way, a little bit further that way. And in order to adjust that, there's these 4 screws here. We're not gonna get focus on that apparently, but there's 4 screws on that blurry bit right here. And you would loosen those to lengthen or shorten this coupler cable a bit, so that you can do things like make sure that your power plug in your power port is properly aligned with the access hole there. Make sure that your SD card slot is accessible. Let's see if I can get a better focus on the SD card slot here. Yeah, you can kind of see it in there. So yeah, there's the power pack. Again, we've got MF3L connector, we've got the coupler. Oh, we've got here the coupler PCB as well. This is where your LED strips plug in to the power pack. Coupler cable, power pack, which has several different components in it. Right here is the coupler cable clamp. This section contains the logic board, and so there's a logic board cover that gets unscrewed from there. There's the battery holder section of it, power port section, and then this last piece is the pigtail adjuster section. The pigtail, again, is adjustable so that this assembly fits all our different size LED wheels. And in order to adjust it, you loosen these 2 screws back here. And it would be nice if we could get the camera to focus on that. Can we? There we go. So these 2 screws, you loosen those and you can slide this pigtail cable in and out of the wheel. All these things, excuse me, this whole system is patent pending, with several different patents pending on it, from our replaceable LED strips to the MagFlex connectors we use, to the just the overall design of how everything fits together and is removable and modular and resizable with the pigtail adjuster, etc. And I'm saying that because over the years, there's been a lot of copycats for our design. So we've finally gotten a little bit smarter and started going through the patenting process with all this stuff. So yeah, so that's the terminology for these parts that you may be working with if you need to tear down the wheel to replace something, repair something, etc. Every bolt in this wheel is one of 3 sizes. We have a 3/16 hex wrench here that is used for the coupler bolts for assembling and disassembling the wheel just through normal usage. And there are 2 more sizes, 5/64 and 7/64 and a 5/64. These are the only 3 wrenches that you need to take apart this wheel just down to nothing, down to the bare parts. If you have one of our older wheels, or if you even bought one of the early Omega wheels we shipped with this kind of multi-tool that has, I don't know, 8 different hex wrench sizes in it, this is now obsolete. You can, if you just have a 7/64, a 5/64, and the 3/16, you can do anything you need with the wheel as far as disassembly. There's a couple other tools that are helpful in repair and maintenance here. And actually, a lot of these tools are just tools that we use as we're building wheels. So half the stuff that you're seeing just laid out on my table right now is actually not something that needs to be in your toolkit. I probably should have gotten them off the table for this video, but here we are. So the things that you do get in the toolkit, I will line up here. So you get a pair of tweezers, you get the 3 hex wrenches that you need. You get a little brush. This is good for cleaning debris off of the magnets. It reaches inside the end of the wheel really nicely to clean off those magnets if you need to, just in case any little magnetic dust or whatever gets on the MF3 connectors. We've got these little pickle fork looking tools that are for replacing LED strips. We got an ice pick in your kit. Everybody is always like, why did you send me an ice pick? And I'll show you in a few minutes. We'll show what that's for. And we've got this this little tool that is for pulling the ribbon cables through when you're replacing an LED strip. And then we've got a tool that when it first ships to you, it's going to look like this. It's just a bent piece of wire essentially. And this is for pulling your new LED strips into place. And I think that is pretty much the entire toolkit. Haven't gone over the replacement parts yet. Here's what a replacement LED strip will look like, or at least our newer ones. We've changed these a little bit. And actually, if you ordered an Omega wheel or one of our earlier LED wheels, we don't have this tool in there either. This is new because we have simplified our LED replacement method a bit recently as well. So I think that's it for all the tools that you need to know. Let's get these back out of the way. And then we'll start pulling this apart. Okay. And as always, power on the wheel by pulling the power plug. You can see there's a little bit of a status LED inside there. It's going to go through its boot process and then start playing a pattern from your start folder. And the wheel, yeah, turns on just like that. In order to disassemble the internals of the wheel, in order to remove the internals of the wheel, I highly stress the importance of following the instructions. Yeah, it's going to be in big, bold letters on the user manual. And I say this with such concern because it wasn't the customer, but there was a wheel that we shipped and somebody decided on behalf of the customer, somebody that received the wheel for the customer decided that they wanted to disassemble the wheel, to unpack the packaging, see how it worked, disassemble the wheel, and they missed all the bold print saying follow the instructions. So I cannot stress enough how important this is. Loosen this nylon set screw. Actually, don't just loosen it, remove it all the way. Remove this nylon set screw that's next to the power pack all the way before you, it's right here, it's next to the power port here. Remove that all the way before you remove the internals of the wheel. Cannot stress enough. You will do damage to the expensive internals of this wheel if you do not follow this step and you try to force the power pack out of the wheel without removing this set screw. This is a nylon set screw. You should only ever use the nylon set screws that we send you. If you put a metal set screw in here, you're probably going to damage the battery. The nylon set screw puts a little bit of force on the battery pack so that the battery is not bouncing around when you're using the wheel. It keeps the wheel quieter and it keeps everything a lot safer. It's going to run a lot more consistently. If the battery pack is bouncing around, eventually something's going to loosen up and your wheel's not going to function the way that you want it. So always keep the nylon set screw in place when you're using the wheel. Always remove the nylon set screw if you need to disassemble the internals of the wheel. I'm using the 7/64, the larger of the two Allen keys for this. It's actually a slightly smaller size. It's a 3/32 that it's supposed to take, but because this is a plastic, a nylon set screw, you want to get a good grip in it, and this 7/64 works perfectly. Also, using a nylon set screw here, guarantees that you can't over tighten it. If I start to run this nylon set screw in here and I just keep cranking on it after it's already snug, we're just gonna slip. I can keep spinning this wrench around and nothing will happen. It'll just slip after it reaches a certain level of tightness because it's plastic and it just kind of deforms, not permanently. You can still easily remove this after that. So yeah, that nylon set screw, it's important stuff. I'm going to set that right there. I'm going to keep the nylon set screw right on it. So I've got the nylon set screw out of the wheel, and I've got the power port out of the wheel. So now I'm going to be able to remove the internals without the power plug and the nylon set screw interfering with sliding the power pack in and out of the wheel. Highly important. Can't stress it enough. All right. And of course you need to remove these other two coupler bolts. Another word on nomenclature, there are 4 bolts on each coupler. We refer to them going clockwise around the wheel as A, B, C, and D. During normal use of the wheel, if you're taking it apart for storage and transportation, putting it back together, you only ever need to remove bolts A and B. So going clockwise, the first 2 bolts are the only ones you ever need to remove if you're just taking the wheel apart for general usage. Also very important for your stagehands to know if you've got somebody else that's going to be assembling and disassembling the wheel for you. If they try to remove bolts C and D and pull the wheel apart, they're going to have that same problem where you are possibly doing some damage to your wheel. So let's pull those out. Now we've got our power port, our power plug removed. We've got our nylon set screw removed. We've got bolts C and D removed. I can just pull back on the coupler to start pulling the power pack out of the wheel. So as I, maybe I'll see if I can zoom in on this. All right. So as I'm sliding these parts out of the wheel, I need a larger table, don't I? All right, that's gonna not fall down, hopefully. Once I get about this far, 2-3 inches, I don't want to pull any further than this without releasing the LED strip, the ribbon cables that go to the LED strips from this coupler PCB here. So I'm going to, there's some little tabs on each of these connectors. If I pull them back, are we focused? Okay. I'm pulling those tabs back and then I can release the ribbon cable. So I'm going to do that all the way around. Pull it back and release. And now we're almost ready to pull the power pack fully out, but first I want to just be super sure that I'm not tangling these ribbon cables at all. These ribbon cables, everything has to fit a certain way in order for the internals to go in and out of the wheel. So another very important point is make sure that your ribbon cables are kind of pulled back towards the direction of the LED strip that they run to. How do you know which LED strip they run to? Well, they should be labeled. This one is labeled center. The center strip is the strip that faces the performer, the strip facing the inside of the wheel. I want to pull that back towards the center. This one is labeled top, and I'm going to pull that over the top strip here. And likewise with the bottom one, I'm going to pull that back over the bottom strip. And I won't be able to really show you why very clearly until we get this out of the wheel. Or can I? Yeah, I kind of can. But basically all of those ribbon cables are sitting kind of flush against the inside wall of the wheel. And at this point, I can just gently pull the power pack out of the wheel. If you ever have to pull harder than, I don't know. I'm not sure how much force I'm using. I've never measured it. Maybe I should measure that somehow, but then how would you guys measure it? There's going to be a little friction as the power pack begins to slide against the ribbon cables here. Friction, a tiny bit of friction is fine, but if you ever feel like there's a hard stop, which you would have felt by now at this point. So there's the battery, there's the pigtail adjuster, there's the MF3R connector. If you feel anything more than friction, if you feel something actually sticking, there's a problem. Make sure that you've got your nylon set screw and your power plug fully removed from the wheel. That status LED that was just on a second ago, by the way, you can configure that to be on or off if you don't want it distracting from a performance. It's easy to set that to be on or off during a performance. Let me zoom this back out now. And I'll show this a little bit closer, hopefully. It's hard to see down in there. Let me see if I can shine a flashlight in the end so you can see. There we go. If I shine a flashlight in the end here, you might be able to see. There we go. You can kind of see how those LED strips, the ribbon cables go, they lay against the wall until they reach the access hole where they go up through to the LED strip. Yeah, so you can see that there. All right, so let's get this out of here. All right, so now we've got the power pack out of the wheel. Let's go ahead and replace an LED strip. One thing you can do with section 1 of the wheel, and they're labeled, are the Omega wheel sections. You can bolt them together in any order, but they're generally adjusted to fit best in one orientation, but you can swap them if you need to. Sometimes you might need to change your pigtail length a little bit in order to do that. But anyways, this is section 1, you can tell because there's a little 1 on the coupler here stamped into it. And I can use this to test LED strips while it's outside of the wheel. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that here. Let me turn this back on. When it first boots, it's going to go through its initialization process for a few moments. It's going to go purple. It'll give a little blink once it's ready to start sending pattern data to the LEDs. But we've got our top strip plugged in here. Yeah, so you can verify easily. You could, if you wanted to use this this power pack assembly and like kind of carry it around to different sections of the wheel to test LED strips independently, you could do that. Or you could test a replacement strip. You can repair these yourself if you're good at soldering. You can make your own replacement LED strips and test them this way as well. I'm going to just plug this into there, and I can see it is lighting up all the way to the end. So here's our replacement LED strip that we're going to install. And maybe I'll show a close-up of this real close as well. Showing these ribbon cables and how I need to pull back on that. If you don't pull back on these before pulling the ribbon cable out, you could damage the ribbon cable. This is hard to do holding it up in the air in front of a camera, but it's pretty simple to do in normal usage. So there's that. Another note, actually I should have explained this when I first removed the power pack from the wheel. Another very, very important point. As I'm moving this around, the walls of this, the housing, the enclosure, the power pack itself, we can only make those so thick so that they can fit within the frame of the wheel. And the weakest point of them is here by the battery, because we've got it notched out so that the battery can be easily removed and it holds the battery in place, etc. This coupler is pretty heavy on here. Always support the weight of this coupler with, you know, on its own. Don't let it hang from the power pack. I would never, you know, you should never pick up the power pack and let the coupler hang down. You might get away with it, but it's a really bad idea. If you drop this coupler, if you're not supporting the weight of this coupler, and say I dropped it off the edge of the table here, it fell on the floor, you might snap the power pack, and you don't want to do that, obviously. So treat it carefully. When it's assembled inside the wheel, it's bomb-proof, essentially. There's no forces that the wheel's gonna go through that you will survive that will damage the power pack while it's inside the wheel. But when it's outside of the wheel, it's not protected by this 1/4-inch thick aluminum frame. So be careful with it when it's outside of the wheel. All right, let's jump to replacing an LED strip. So I am going to replace this top LED strip. How do we do that? This is where a couple tools come in handy right away. We've got these PVC skin lifting tools, and we've got this ice pick here. So the ice pick is used for actually poking into the PVC skin, which is pretty flexible. It will leave essentially just a pinhole in the cover afterwards. Actually, we're not going to use that until we put the new strip in, most likely. But I'm going to remove this this top strip here. The first thing that we'll need is to put one of these. And actually, these ones are worn down a little bit. I mean, not worn down, but shaved down for various. As we were testing, we tried different lengths and sizes of these. This one works a lot better than this one, but you're going to get them looking like this when they first ship. Anyways, what I need to do is I need to like lift up the PVC cover from the end of the wheel here a little bit. Just like that. Great. And kind of just shimmy it into position. I want to get it pushed in as far as I can. This is how we're going to access that LED strip in there. I need to slide it that direction a little bit in order to get it lined up better. Perfect. And what that's done is it's created, there's like a little ramp shape on, there we go. Can we get focus? There we go. So there's like a little ramp shape on there that lets the LED strip come back out of this groove now. When we go to install the next strip, we're going to use this other tool on the other end, so that we can use this this wire tool here to pull the new LED strip through. But first, let's get this old LED strip out, and you can use either or both of the ice pick tool or the ribbon cable tool. This ribbon cable tool is handy in a few areas here. Sometimes you can just grab right behind an LED with this and then pull it forward. Although these ones, I think these ones might have a bit of hot glue from our old installation method. Yeah, so if you got one like this that has a little dab of hot glue, it's hard to see because it's clear, but just at the end of the strip here, it's got a little dab of hot glue that's holding it in place. So you can poke into that hot glue and then kind of lift up with the ice pick there and get that loosened up. There we go. So now I can kind of manipulate the LED strip inside there, and I might be able to just use my this tool here now to pull. It's got to come up over the lip at the end of the LED groove. So that's an important thing to note, is that the LED groove does not come all the way to the end of the wheel. This helps protect the LEDs, keep them from sliding in and out, keep debris from getting in to the LED groove. So you've got to get the strip to come up over that groove. Sometimes it's a combination of a couple different tools. You've also got your tweezers. So you could get under with the ice pick and then grab the edge of the LED strip with the tweezers and pull it back a little bit. You can also kind of come through the skin. Sorry if I just keep sticking my head right in front of the camera. You can also just poke the ice pick through the skin and start pushing the LED strip out like that. Avoid pushing right on an LED because you can damage the solder connection from the LED. And that hole that you just kind of pushed through the wheel will just close up and become invisible. But you can now just slide the entire LED strip right out of the wheel just like that. And the ribbon cable that goes to the LED, let me zoom out here. So the ribbon cable that goes to the LED strip will slide out with it. There's a little access hole right here. There we go. You can just see it there. So that access hole, the ribbon cable comes out of that and just kind of will let itself right out of the wheel. So there's the strip we took out. That's still a good strip, so I'm going to actually prepare that one to go back in later on. But a replacement LED strip is a tiny bit different from a strip that's already in your wheel, namely that it'll have a pull wire on it. So this one has this little loop on it, and this one actually, there's hold on. This one was not 100% prepared, so I just gotta modify something here, and we'll be ready to go in a second. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this little loop of wire that's on there to pull the LED strip back into the wheel. So I wanna grab my other PVC skin lifting tool and put it in this side of the wheel. Just like that. And then I'm going to use our LED pull tool to pull the LED strip through. But it's not quite that simple because we have to thread the ribbon cable through the proper way before we can pull the LED strip in. And when you first receive your toolkit, your LED pull tool, the pull wire tool, is just going to be kind of looped up like this. I like to straighten them out a bit. They're a little easier to control. They don't have to be perfectly straight, but they pack down nicely if they're coiled like that, but they work better if they're not coiled like that. So I'm just gonna uncoil it a bit. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we want to reduce some friction as we're feeding it through by having less of a bend in it. Okay, so that's good enough. And it's still got quite a bit of curve to it, and that's fine. But I'm gonna feed it through in the same direction that it is curved. I'm just gonna push it right through until it emerges out the other end of the, actually I do want to change that bend a little bit. This like last little curve that's in it here, I want to take that out a little bit so that it ends up coming out of the hole in a better orientation. Or coming out of the end of the groove in a better orientation. And I'll just feed that right through until it pops out the other end. And you might find that it doesn't want to pop up from that lip on its own, in which case you can just kind of get under it with your ice pick there until the end pops out, like that. And now we're just about ready to put the LED strip in. When you put the LED strip in, very important to get all of the twists and kinks out, kind of lay it down flat. And I've got this this ribbon cable folded underneath it, because the ribbon cable needs to go underneath and then down through that access hole. So I want to make sure I've got this in the right orientation. I'm going to kind of hold the LED strip in the orientation it's going to be in when the wheel is fully assembled. And then I'm going to take the ribbon cable, I'm going to slide it into the groove underneath the pull tool, the pull wire that we just fed in there. And this one has a little extension on it, which makes it a little bit more you know what, I'm actually going to do this the other way around. I'm going to pull my pull tool back on this one, because this one has this little splice on there, and this isn't our actual spare LED strips that we send won't have this little splice in there. That actually makes this a little bit more annoying. I probably should have grabbed a different strip to do this with, but this one is the right length for this wheel. I'm going to pull our wire back before the access hole there. And then the first thing I will do is actually feed this in to right where the access hole is. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but the access hole is right about there. I'm gonna poke through here, right above the access hole, and use my ice pick to just kind of push the end of that ribbon cable down through the access hole. And on this one, because we got that splice in there, and I probably have to do that a couple times. We're gonna have to go through and just get rid of all these splices, because I don't want people to have to deal with that. Okay, So you get that through, you get the splice through. Once you get the splice through, that's you're good to go. Now we've got our cable, our ribbon cable kind of oriented the right way. I want to make sure I got all my twists out, make sure it's laying the correct way. And then I can, I'm going to hold my LED strip here. And at this point, I'll probably feed my wire pull tool back through to grab onto the LED strip. Don't let it get caught on your shirt like that. That's annoying. Now I can feed the pull wire on the LED strip onto the pull tool. I can pull this back through, and I want to be careful not to pull the ribbon cable in with it. So, and I want to be careful that I'm not also putting stress on the LEDs as they pass underneath the edge of the PVC here. So, so you got to have a little bit of dexterity to make sure that this is feeding through properly. All right, and when I get right about to the end of the LED strip there, get that last couple inches, I want to make sure that at the right point, we're going to start feeding the ribbon cable through with the LEDs. And the ribbon cable is nice and slick, so it's going to slide right along with it as long as you're kind of holding it there and pressing it in. And I'm going to pull these right into place, but actually I'm going to pull them just past the distance that I need to so that I can trim off this this pull cable, or this pull wire, from the end of it. So I pulled it just a tiny bit further, and you can use, as long as this isn't powered on, you can use scissors or snips or whatever to cut these off of the end. But before I do that, I'm just going to double check that I didn't damage the LED strip during the installation process. So I'm going to have to fish the ribbon cable out of here. So let me get my other two strips kind of pulled back and aligned where they need to be so that I can then see in there. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this on camera. So I've got to do this kind of half blind here if I'm going to do this on camera. Yeah, and I'm just going to use my eyeballs here. Shining a flashlight down inside of the wheel helps as well, so you can see what you're grabbing on. There's our cable. All right, so there's our new cable, and I want to plug that in and test it before we go any further. So should probably make sure I have my battery in there. Make sure it's in the right way as well. Zoom out here again, and power this on. All right, and then making sure that I've got it oriented the right way. I don't want to plug the cable in backwards. You won't really damage anything if you plug it in backwards for a second, but if you plug it in backwards and leave it there for too long, you could damage the cable because you're essentially just creating a dead short through the LEDs, and you could damage the LEDs that way. So I'm going to plug this cable in and test it, make sure it still fully works, and it does. And once I know that, it's lighting up all the way to the end properly. Now I want to power this off so that I don't risk shorting anything when I trim off the excess on the end here. So I'm going to trim off this little bit of excess where the pole wire or loop is. And also some of our older LED strips will have like a big long wire, because what we used to, the way that we were doing this before, you would just have a wire that you fed all the way through, but that wasted a lot of wire, and the wire isn't as rigid as this steel wire is. So it was sometimes annoying to get it lined up and pulled all the way through. So we're doing it this way now. But yeah, I'm going to trim this little bit of excess off here. So just get that wire right off of there. And then I can use, I could probably use the ice pick, but with the ice pick, I use it less if I can avoid it. But you can use your this pull tool here to kind of get behind or on top of an LED, or you don't want to pull too hard on an LED because you could damage it. So I'm actually grabbing right on one of these solder joints. I don't want to pull directly on the ribbon cable either. So let me see if I can get focus on this. Scott, would you actually give me a hand, like hold this up right there? Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Get focus on right there. Okay, so I got the end of my tool, and I'm pulling on the solder connection right there to pull it back. And you know what? I had a much better angle on it when it was down there and I could see it. You could gently pull on the LED, but if you pull too hard, you could damage that LED. But pull it back up into place, and then this end should drop down just inside of the lip there. You can also, if it's not dropping fully down inside the lip there, you can give a little push from the inside here, and it'll just kind of bunch up the excess there until it sits down inside, and that strip is replaced. You can now remove the pull tools. The skin will shrink right back down. The skin that we use, anyways, will shrink right back down. I've done tests where I've left these in for weeks to see if it does if it permanently stretches the PVC. And with our PVC, it doesn't. I don't know if that's going to be true for all PVC if you, for some reason, reskin one of these wheels with somebody else's PVC, or try to do that on another wheel. But yeah, the skin will shrink right back down, covering up the LED groove, and you're ready to throw this back together. So let me run through my list here. There's some other stuff I wanted to do before I show how to put everything back together. Let's see, I didn't show power pack adjustability yet. I did walk through the tools. We did show internals removal, LED replacement, Wi-Fi antenna install. All right, so I want to show a couple things on the power pack here. Some of these are going to be relevant to general repair and maintenance stuff, and some of these are going to be relevant to if you actually have like a replacement, if you order a spare or have a replacement power pack. So what I just pulled out here is just a little protective tube for these power packs. If we ship you a power pack, there won't be any battery inside of it due to all kinds of regulations and whatnot, but there will be a protective sleeve around it that looks just like this. The coupler won't be on there because the coupler is really separate from the power pack assembly. Yeah, if I ship you a power pack and you receive a tube with some wires coming out of it, the tube is not the power pack. The power pack is inside of there. So this is just a protective PVC tube that we've bent to fit the power packs. And I'm going to pull off the logic board cover here and show you what's under there. And also, I don't believe this one has the additional Wi-Fi antenna on it. So here's where you're going to want your 5/64 wrench. There's 4 screws on the logic board cover. I'm going to pull those back. We'll get a look at the night sky board in here. And only section 1 has the night sky board. Every other section has a different logic board, and it's we call it the repeater board. We keep changing our names for some of these parts in here, but I think repeater board is the simplest. What the repeater board does is it amplifies and repeats the signal that's being sent out from the night sky board. So the night sky controller in section 1 of the wheel is the main brain of the wheel. It's controlling everything that's going on. It's receiving any signals you're sending to it with either the infrared remote or over Wi-Fi. Here it is. This is the night sky board. SD card slot in it. I don't know if I showed this earlier. I'll have to show this when I put this back together, but the SD card can be removed from the wheel while it's fully assembled through this little slot right here. Yeah, there's night sky. Can you get in closer there? That's our night sky board. And there's a little white connector that connects it to the wheel. If I want to remove this from the connector, I will pinch right at the base of that connector. I'll grab onto that ribbon cable that it's on right there, and just make sure I'm not putting any stress on this ribbon cable. Kind of splits out and joins into the wires of the rest of the power pack here. I don't want to really put a lot of pressure pulling on that, so I grip it really close to the head of the connector there to separate it from the board. And there's our night sky board. I'm gonna switch spots here in the shop and show you a couple things about the night sky board. We're gonna need one of these antennas to go on here. Okay, so we've got our night sky board here. Now, some of these night sky boards have shipped out there's a couple different configurations of them. Actually, I can show on the microscope, perhaps. No, maybe not. Well, some of them have this antenna connector, and some do not. The ones that do not are using a PCB antenna, which you can see the traces for here. Essentially, if it has this connector on there, we can add a separate Wi-Fi antenna that's that receives the signal better than the. Let me switch cameras again. we can install one of these antennas onto that little antenna connector right there. So that antenna connector, can I get close enough? This doesn't want to focus that close. These can be a little bit annoying, but there's, it's really just like a snap fit. You just got to get it lined up really well. It's just annoying because they're so small. Get it lined up well and snap it down, and they're pretty snug once they're on. So there we go. This little pigtail antenna, or whip antenna, whatever it's called, has a lot better reception than the onboard antenna on these. So we're going to send these out to some folks that got those boards to increase Wi-Fi receptivity. And let's go throw this in the wheel now. I'll show you, excuse me, I'll show you how to route this antenna through. So now that I've got the antenna installed onto this board, I can snap that back on. These can't be put on backwards. There's like two kind of like ears on this connector. There's a wide ear on this side and a skinny ear on this side. So yeah, you can't put them on backwards, but you do have to make sure that it's kind of aligned properly before snapping it down. And if you want to verify that you did that correctly, pop your battery in there and make sure the light comes on. If the light comes on, then it's on there correctly. Then we need to also, can I show this on this camera? We're zoomed all the way in. The power pack housing, this enclosure has like a little bit of a notch in it along the back wall and along the front wall that the night sky board or the repeater board, if you're working with another section of the wheel, sits down into. And it sits down into it so that it ends up being flush with the edges. So I don't know how well that really shows, but it's got to sit down flush. And then I just press this ribbon cable so that it kind of sits. It's kind of like an S curve like that, sitting flat against there. I want to make sure that none of the cables are in the way of the screw holes where the logic board cover is going to go back on. And then I want to make a bit of a loop in this antenna cable, and then I'm going to insert the antenna cable down into this cable under the coupler cable clamp cover here, where these 4 screws are. And I'm just going to feed that down into there, like that. Maybe I'll tuck it along the outside of that. So the whole antenna cable has a little bit of an S curve in it in order to fit down and clear everything inside here. And that is just fine. It's gonna work great with a little bit of curve in it like that. You could, it might work a little better if it was stretched out fully straight, but then unfortunately it would be behind the battery in the way things need to be assembled here. But this works great with it kind of just following like an S curve like that through the wheel. And then I will place my logic board cover back on and just make sure as I'm putting it on that that there's like no gap there. It sits easily, not pinching any of the wires, not pinching the antenna that we just put on there. Of course, we don't have focus. There we go. So you can see that it's sitting pretty flush there. There's a tiny bit of a gap right there, but I don't think it's because there's wires. Yeah, no, that's not due to any wires being pinched. That's just the little bit of flex in the housing causing that. It seems. And if you ever have any doubt, double check. Yeah, there's no wires in there. It's all good. So I'm going to hold this in the right position while I tighten down the logic board cover screws again. And you only want to go just to snug here. There's no reason to really crank on these. You might strip a hole or pull the bolt head all the way through the housing if you really crank on these. They just have to be snug. And after I get all four snug, I check them all, because sometimes the alignment of the cover might change a little bit as the four come down. So after I get all four snug, I check them all and put, maybe another 1/8 of a turn on each one. But now it's back together with the Wi-Fi antenna inside. Let's see, the last thing to show, I'm going to show pigtail length adjustment. And actually, one way you can do that, so say we send you a completely new power pack. You're some very conscientious member of your team decided that they wanted to disassemble your wheel without properly understanding the instructions, perhaps. And now you need to order a new power pack. And yes, I am speaking based on experience right now. Essentially, what I'm doing here is laying our coupler over top of the end of the wheel here. You know what? I've got some tape here. I'll just hold it in place with this tape. All right, so we've got that sitting right where it will sit when the wheel is assembled. So we've got the coupler holes aligned between the coupler and the wheel frame here. And I can verify, I can see that the power port lines up, I can see that the SD card slot lines up and all that. Then I will bring this pigtail and MF3R connector to where it's going to kind of naturally sit. And then I can grab whatever's going to be the next section of wheel, and I can see where that's going to sit. And I can see that naturally that's going to be like the perfect position for this. There's a nice natural amount of slack and looseness in the cables here. These coupler holes are aligned with the holes in the frame here, and the connection is made slightly before the coupler is aligned. So actually, it's probably, I haven't figured out if there's like an optimal measurement for this, but I like it when the coupler, or when the magnetic connectors will engage when the wheel is not fully, when this coupler is not fully inserted into this end of the wheel. And that way you know that the wire is long enough, and that any kind of shaking is not going to cause it to loosen up. It's better if these are a touch longer than if they are even right on, or if they're a touch short, they won't work at all. So I like to align them so that they're slightly longer. And this one I can see is right at the right length. So I'm actually going to mark this one with that measurement just by putting a little mark at the end of the cable where it's going in, because I am going to show you how to loosen and adjust that. So these two screws at the end of this pigtail adjuster section here can be loosened a couple turns, and then you're able to slide this pigtail in and out of the pigtail adjuster. And I'm going to put it right back where it was. When you do make that adjustment, make sure that this MagFlex connector is kind of just naturally sitting with the curve going the same direction as the wheel, and also with let me turn this up this way. If the floor was facing me, like this side would be the bottom, this side would be the top, this would be facing the outside of the wheel, this side is facing the inside of the wheel. You want to make sure it's naturally sitting in that orientation so that the coupler of the next section of the wheel aligns with it properly. As you can see here, so this is how the coupler would align with that. It's forgiving of several degrees of rotation. The magnets pull it into the right orientation if it is slightly off. But I'm going to tighten these back down again. And again, we only need to go snug here. This end of the power pack is never significantly pulled or pushed on. That's why we only have 2 screws on the pigtail adjuster, while we've got 4 screws on the coupler cable clamp. So I'm going to tighten those down, just snug, and this is good to go. We can assemble this back into the wheel. I am going to need to put my battery in before I install this. And I can take my tape off of this side. All right, and in order to install this, do this either right on the floor or on like a very large table where you're not going to be like working too close to the edge where you're going to drop this off, because again, letting the weight of the coupler hang from the power pack is not a good idea. Can cause damage to the power pack. You can split it where the battery is here, because that is the thin spot. When this is outside of the wheel, just be really careful with it. Treat it like a baby. And yeah, let's get this set up to reinstall. So I've got my, the first thing I'll do is I'll pull these ribbon cables back. And actually this one I need to label. So I got a C on this one, there's a C for center. This one there's a B for bottom. On this one I'll put a T for top. And that'll help make sure that they're aligned the right direction, orientation. And then I want to look down in there and make sure that they're sitting flat against the wall, as they should be. So you can see that they're all sitting flat against the wall there. The top cable might be able to go a little bit more taut. This is a lot easier if I'm not trying to have a camera seat on in there. Anyways, verify that they are sitting in the right orientation like that. If they're not in the right orientation, you could do damage to the ribbon cable, and then you'll have to replace the LED strip again. You don't want to mess with that. So yeah, so I've got things laid out here so that the weight of the coupler is fully supported through the whole time here. First, I'm going to slide the MF3 R connector in. And now I'm actually moving the power pack via the coupler as opposed to just dragging the power pack around so that the coupler doesn't fall. Again, just you do everything you can to not damage this stuff while it's out of the wheel. Once I get to about this point, there's going to be a little bit of friction as the main body of the power pack slides past the ribbon cables, but it should just be friction. Sometimes there's going to be a little bit of a catch as the MF3L connector slides past the power port hole, and so you can grab any of your tools and just kind of like make sure it's not catching on the edge of that power port hole there. But other than that, it should just be a slight amount of friction, and you should be able to just, with 2 fingers really, pull and push the power pack in and out of the wheel. And once I get down to where I'm a couple inches away, I'll want to attach my LED strips. You can see them coming on as soon as I attach them, because the power plug is removed, and this is section 1, so there's an LED signal coming from it, or there should be. If you're plugging in section 1 like this, and you don't see LEDs, you may have a problem if the LEDs aren't lighting up. So at this point, I want to just like carefully, just like lightly tuck these little last, let me zoom in on this. I'm going to tuck these little last bits of the ribbon cable in so that they don't get caught as we slide the coupler into the wheel. And there it is. This section is back together. Except for our coupler bolts and our nylon set screw. Do not forget your nylon set screw. This is potentially the most important part of the Omega wheel. If you get it wrong, if you forget to remove it, that's a bad day. Well, if you forget to remove it and you start pulling and break something, if you forget to remove it and pull a little bit and notice that it's not just removing easily, you're not going to hurt anything that way. But the mistake would be continuing to pull past that moment. And I also, as I put this nylon set screw back in, I want to make sure that my SD card slot is aligned nicely, and it is. I want to make sure that my power port is kind of aligned nicely, and it is. And you can kind of just like use your thumb or a finger to align the power port where you want it to sit before putting the nylon set screw back in place. Nylon set screw will hold it in whatever position you just chose for it. And we're back together. So I think I covered everything on my list here, and my throat is really dry from all that talking, so I'm probably going to end this live stream now. Anything else I want to show on this? Probably not. This is not a good angle for it, but the SD card slot here, if you are removing the SD card from the SD card slot, you can use these little tweezers. The top of the SD card, the side with the writing on it, should kind of face the top of the wheel in that standard position. And then if you remove it, you should probably have the wheel powered off. You shouldn't be doing it the way that I'm doing it, with the wheel powered on. But when you go to put the SD card back in, it's not going to be able to read the SD card until you reboot again. So something to be aware of. That is, if you change any of the files, because it initializes the file system and reads all the files that are on there when you first turn the wheel on. So after you put the SD card back in, if you've taken it out with the wheel running, which again, there's probably no reason you should do that, you will need to power it back on in order for it to read from the SD card and start to go through the normal boot process again and be able to find files, or find any new files you might have added to it. And with that, I'm going to end this live stream. Did I forget anything, Scott?
Not that I know of. I think you did fine.
Sean? Anything I forgot? Okay. Let's see. You know what? One thing I will do, let me switch cameras here. What are we at? Hour and 14 minutes. Yeah, I guess I'm going to end this. Upcoming live streams that I want to do are some troubleshooting stuff. So what to do if you plug your wheel in, put it together, and a section's not lighting up. There's some simple steps to determine if there's a physical connectivity issue, where that physical connectivity issue is, and then how to address it. If there's a bad battery, how to determine which one is bad, what to do about it. Things like that. Determining whether or not an issue that you're seeing is a bad LED strip or some other issue with the wheel. So that's a troubleshooting live stream that I'm going to do. Then there's also a live stream for the new version of Star Pusher that has a Wi-Fi remote control built in. And I am not going to, I'm not going to do that today. Yeah, I'm going to end this live stream for real now because it's getting hard to talk. Thanks for watching.